Hello and welcome everybody. My name is Ryan and I'm a guide for the Central Park Conservancy. Central Park Conservancy is a nonprofit who takes care of Central Park year-round. Our mission is to preserve and celebrate Central Park as a sanctuary from urban life, enhancing the enjoyment and well-being of all. Because getting to Central Park is not so easy right now, we want to continue bringing the park to you through these weekly walks occurring every Wednesday at 12:30, where we give you a lunchtime stroll of different landscapes throughout the park. Today, we're going to be exploring the Bridle Path, which is one of three types of paths within Central Park, originally created for the purpose of horseback riding. We'll learn a little bit about the bridle path on our walk today, and just about all of the photos you're going to see were taken by myself within the past week or so. We will see a few other photos, which I accessed from various sources, such as the New York Public Library, the Museum of the City of New York, the New York City Parks Department, and just New York Public Archives, all which can be publicly accessed at home on your own computer or smartphone. We're going to be together for about 15 to 20 minutes on our walk today, and we'll jump right into it after a little bit of Zoom housekeeping. So I'm sure many of you have joined us before on these weekly walks, probably familiar again with using Zoom, but if you want to let us know where you're joining us from or give us a favorite memory of the park, use the chat feature to say hello. If you do have a question, use the Q&A feature, and my colleagues Juan, Ian, and Jose are all on the back end answering any questions you might have. The last thing you're going to see pop up on your screen are going to be a few visitor polls that I'll launch throughout the walk today as we go, and then I'll share everybody's consensus once we get all of the votes in. I'm actually going to launch a poll right now as we start off, and feel free to vote in this, then it'll disappear. This one's a simple one. Have you ever walked, ran, or bicycled on the bridle path? We're going to again learn about the bridle path, and even though it was used for horses, might not see too many horses on there today, but feel free to vote in that poll and I'll share it in just a moment. So we're going to start right up, and this is the route we're going to be taking today. Again, exploring one of the three different types of paths in Central Park, the bridle path. So we're going to begin our walk just at Columbus Circle, entering the park at 59th and 8th Avenue, one of the busiest entrances to the park, Merchant's Gate. And as we enter at Merchant's Gate, we'll see a favorite of ours, some of these little signs we see popping up all over the park. The My Central Park hashtag could be used if you ever want to share a favorite quote or story about the park, and you could potentially end up on a sign in the park or even online. This one reads, Central Park really is the best backyard and big enough for the whole city to enjoy. And we can certainly experience that as we walk along the 2.5 mile long park, but especially as we walk on the different paths, which separate the different type of traffic or activity we're coming to the park to do. So entering the park, we walk down a little bit and come to a little roadway. On this roadway, we see a common sight, bicycles. On top of bicycles, horse-drawn carriages are also commonly seen on these roadways. And that's appropriate because if we look at a map, we can see the three different types of paths in the park. There are these kind of white lines, which are the pedestrian paths that we're walking all throughout. There's going to be this kind of gray path, which is where that horse-drawn carriage is on, called the West Side Drive, Center Drive, or East Side Drive. And while today that's commonly used as a bicycle path, it originally was a horse-drawn carriage path, so it's appropriate to have those carriages on there. The path we're going to be exploring today, and the third type of path, is located over here on the west or left side of this map, and it's a slight green path called the Bridle Trail, which was created for invigorating horseback riding. We're going to walk just a little bit across that street and come to the edge of that bridle path. Before we do, though, we come up to a beautiful cast iron arch. This is Pine Bank Arch, which was created in 1861 and is one of 5 remaining cast iron bridges, one of the 5 original cast iron bridges created for Central Park. If we look at it from, or if we look at the base of it, we can see where it's really getting its name. Pine trees, which grow right at the bank of this archway. Looking at the arch from a profile view, we can see it expand over here, and we can see why it's called an arch. This is Pine Bank Arch and not bridge because it's going over land. Land will classify it as an arch, whereas water will make it a bridge. So this is Pine Bank Arch, the southernmost cast iron arch we can find in the park. And we can see that ginkgo tree on the right just really coming into peak foliage. We jump back up onto Pine Bank Arch, we can see that beautiful cast iron railing. And just behind it, we can actually see the bridle path. This is the southernmost point of the bridle path that we can access today. And you'll notice it kind of comes to a cul-de-sac point over here, which is a little odd. If we look at a Greensward map, or one of the original design maps of Central Park, we can see what is today the Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis Reservoir and this blue line tracing around it and extending down. This is the bridle path. The bridle path was an original path addition to Central Park, but originally it just went around the reservoir up here on the right. There was a few other people that were watching the park being created, a board of commissioners involving a couple people like a man, Robert Dillon and August Belmont. You may have heard that last name Belmont from Belmont Raceways. Might have got the impression these two gentlemen were really into horseback riding. When the park was being created, Robert Dillon made about 17 suggestions for updates to the Greensward plan. One of them was to extend the bridle path, because this reservoir track was only about 2 miles long and they wanted longer, invigorating horseback riding. So people eventually listened to him, and that gained a lot of support. And we do eventually see the creators of the park, Calvert Vaux and Frederick Law Olmsted, extending this bridle path all the way down here towards the west end, and then coming over and extending out to Fifth Avenue and Grand Army Plaza. Today, we do see the path abruptly ending just over here near Pine Bank Arch, because not only did horseback riding sort of decrease over the years in popularity, but other additions came into the park, like Heckscher Playground, which is located just back here. So looking back at that photo, we can see right where the bridle path eventually came to a halt in the 1930s. But we can continue today walking on the rest of the bridle path from Pine Bank Arch and extending up towards the northwest. We'll learn a little bit more about the bridle path, but for now, we'll continue walking up and enjoy some of the sights of present-day Central Park. As we do walk up, I love coming around at this 2 or 3 o'clock time, because we get the sun starting to set on the west side, illuminating some of these beautiful trees. This is a little horse chestnut tree that we can go up to and just see some of that magnificent color change. And as we look around, we're not the only ones enjoying the beautiful foliage of this tree. As we continue walking along, we can see some more different types of trees coming alive. And as we walk just around the path to the left, we come up to another type of bridge or archway. On today's walk, we're also going to see three arches rather. And these 3 arches were not only really beautiful and different in design, but all subsequently came because of the bridle path. As we walk up, we can see Dalehead Arch. And what we also see becoming an addition to the park are many different arches and bridges. Originally, there was only going to be about 7 bridges, 2 tunnels, a masonry bridge, and a footbridge in the park. But once the bridle path was extended, we see 19 bridges being added. And by 1872, there were 34 bridges and arches in the park. And these bridges and arches served an important role. They allowed us to travel through the park in different types of traffic and really not interfere with one another. Over this path would be the horse-drawn carriage path, while underneath it would be the invigorating horseback riding path. So neither of these paths would interfere with one another as they flow through the park. Dalehead Arch is made of sandstone as well as Philadelphia red brick. And we see that sandstone getting some nice decoration on the outside, very different than the cast iron metal of Pine Bank Arch. You can see that Philadelphia red brick as we pass through. And as you exit these tunnels and arches, you get some more drastic sweeping meadows of what you would see riding through on a horse. As we wrap uphill a little bit, we come to around 65th Street near Tavern on the Green. And if we look just over to our left, we actually see something pretty special and unique, something that really makes the park what it is and certainly affects our enjoyment of the park. May just look like a little wall of shrubs and flowers, but if we look a little closer, we can see something special. There's actually a road going underneath us. Hard to tell, but we're standing on a bridge right now. It just doesn't really look like a bridge. These transverse roads, or 4 roads that pass underneath the park, were a requirement in the park's design, but were done in a very different way during the time. These roads were made as really tunnels going underneath the park and then disguised with these beautiful bridges. These beautiful bridges tend to look like just really flowers or little gardens, but they cover up these roads that pass underneath the park, bringing taxis and buses in the present day. But back in the 1800s, they would transport horse-drawn carriages and other types of flock and traffic. But this beautiful design today allows us to transverse over different areas of the park and not even realize there's speeding taxis and buses underneath us. As we walk over the 65th Street Transverse, we don't even realize what's happening below. But above us, we can see a lot of color. And if we look just over to the right, a lot of people picnicking on Sheep Meadow. This was probably the last day of really nice weather we had. This was about 75 degrees as we're walking through the park right now. So probably the last really warm day we're gonna have for a weekly walk. After this, we're probably gonna see a lot colder weather start taking over the park. So we'll enjoy the last few days of picnicking and fall foliage as we walk along this much more spaced out, much less crowded pathway. And as we walk by, we can still see all that beautiful color, like the ginkgo trees blooming on the northwest corner of Sheep Meadow. But continuing up along the bridle path, we can see plenty of other beautiful blooms located right in front of us, like this dog rose bush, which is growing. A nice little kind of viney plant that'll sometimes wrap up trees, but offering a beautiful little white flower as we pass by on this west side of the bridle path. And as we come by that little dog rose bush, we do see another one of these signs. It says the park is an essential part of the city, an opportunity to reset, exercise, and relax. And that is certainly the case. We can definitely see really anywhere you come in Central Park being able to reset mentally. You can go to Sheep Meadow like we just saw and relax. And what we often see on the bridle path, exercise. We see a lot of people walking, running, jogging, and even bicycling on the bridle path today. We can't forget what it was originally created for, horseback riding. This is actually a picture from a New York Times article that's called "Winnie If You Miss Central Park's Horses." And Central Park, of course, did have a lot of different recreation it was used for, but horses were an original part of the park with that early suggestion coming in and getting a lot of extension of bridle paths around 1863. In 1873, we do see official rules being made for Central Park to encourage and allow for horseback riding. In 1886, in Ableton's New York City guidebook said that it cost about $3 to rent a horse for the afternoon, which was pretty expensive. And it said that actually activity decreased during the summer months when the wealthier residents that typically rented horses went upstate to their summer homes. We see really during the fall and winter being the primary times to go horseback riding. We do see horseback riding decreasing over time though. I actually want to launch, I'll share the first poll we saw, which is, have we visited the bridle path before? Has anybody walked, run, or bicycled on it? And it actually looks like a lot of people have. Some people aren't sure, and of course, a lot of people haven't visited either. This does take you through various areas of the park and can bring you by other popular sections, but you might not have gone out of your way just to come to the bridle path. But I do want to launch a second poll right now, and I want to see if you've ever seen a horse on the bridle path. Today, you're probably not really going to see a horse on the bridle path. This picture was back from the 1900s, and we do see horseback riding continuing in the 1900s, but eventually really falling off. We do see the closing of quite a few stables throughout the park area. In 2007, we do see the closing of the Claremont Riding Academy, which was located around West 89th Street and primarily brought a lot of horse and horseback riding activity into the park. Since 2007, we don't really see too much activity in terms of horses in the park, besides maybe a mounted park ranger or something along those lines. I'm going to actually end and share that poll. And surprisingly, a lot of people have seen a horse on the bridle path before. I actually expected most people to say no, they've never seen one here before. But occasionally you still can see them, especially near Tavern on the Green. That tends to be a great starting point for horses now. And occasionally you can have walking tours with the horses. But really cool that you've been able to see horses on the bridle path before. While today we don't really see too many horses on the bridle path, we do see a different type of exercise or recreation occurring, one that typically occurs during the winter. And that is going to be either snowshoeing or cross-country skiing. Cross-country skiing becomes a popular activity on certain meadows like Sheep Meadow and the Great Lawn if we get more than 6 inches of snow. But just about all the time, no matter the snowfall amount, you can go cross-country skiing on the bridle path. And a lot of people utilize this long western stretch to get a nice view as they get some exercise. Presently though, bridle path can be a great area to walk, run, or bicycle, or just enjoy some of the beautiful views, especially during the sunset in the afternoon. Bridle path might not seem like a lot to maintain, but it actually is. They actually noted even back in the 1900s how hard it was to really maintain this. Actually, even before that, in the 1800s, they were, in the 1860s, when creating the bridle paths, they had to go through a lot of trial and error, figuring out what type of rubble, how deep to make it, the sand and other materials that they were using. They had to rake it each morning and each night, and they had to water it to prevent a lot of dust. In 1908, they reported how much it was costing, really paying people to harrow it each morning and night, and again, keep watering it so it wouldn't make it all dusty. But a lot of effort went into this, and you can imagine a lot of areas of the park were neglected and eventually ended up like this. The Conservancy did form in 1980 because many areas like the bridle path were not so nice. There was a lot of work that needed to be done, and around 1994, we did do a restoration of quite a few hundred feet of bridle path along the west side, near about 82nd Street and Winterdale Arch, restoring it from this kind of swampy, muddy wreck of a path to a more beautiful sandy gravel path that actually allows for a different type of recreation. And even though we don't see horses today, we still do see plenty of people utilizing this once historic path. As we do continue down a little bit, we will come to that last arch we can explore, but before we get there, we'll bear to the right, and I want to show us a little view just near this wisteria pergola. This wisteria pergola is one of many you can find throughout Central Park, made of a wood called black locust and wrapped with a viney wisteria plant growing on it. If we look just over to our left, we can see Riftstone Arch, which we're going to explore in a moment, but we can also see a view down onto the bridle path. And I wanted to show this because we can see how the park actually has inspired different art. Here is a painting by Edward Hopper from 1939, which is titled Bridle Path. This is a really beautiful piece that was certainly inspired by the view we're taking right now. This photo actually came from www.edwardhopper.net, little photo site for the artist, but a wonderful piece created in 1939, again, showing this exact view that we get present day. But a really beautiful little way to see how the park has kind of changed over time. Of course, that tree has grown quite a bit. But if we continue back down the path, we can go see Riftstone Arch in person, as if we're the horses running through. And as we come up, we can see that little wisteria pergola we were just standing underneath. And now we can start going under Riftstone Arch, an archway made around 1862. Another cool little side note, all three arches, Pine Bank, Dale Head, and Riftstone, were all completed between 1860 and 1862. So all really created around the same exact time. And as we walk up, we can see how this Riftstone Arch looks like it's just growing out of the rock. Made out of Manhattan mica schist, the bedrock of New York. We can actually see those little kind of boring marks on the top as well. Those little holes are drilling marks or boring marks from when they bored holes, filled it with gunpowder, lit it, and ran, blowing chunks of this rock out, using it for other different architecture within the park, like Riftstone Arch. A really beautiful arch that once you get in, you can truly see how grand it is. One of my favorite things to do in this arch is come in the middle of the day and see how it suddenly turns to night. This just really blocks out all of the light, even during the middle of a really sunny day. Looking back from where we walked, if we turn right around, we can see the exit and one of my favorite photos that we were able to take on this walk today. But we're standing right about halfway through this archway, so it's just really amazing how much it blocks out. And once we walk just through the archway, we'll start to get greeted by not only light, but more color waiting for us. We'll walk just a little bit past here and come to an ending point for our walk today. Bearing just to the right, we can see a little wooden pathway that might have offered us a chance to sit down and take a rest as we're riding our horses through the park. A great little design that also looks over some of the other paths within the park. Might be hard to see because of the shrubs, but just on the far left, we can see a snippet of the horse-drawn carriage path. And just below on the right-hand side, some people walking on a pedestrian path. This little section gives us a little view of everything and how perfectly the three paths of Central Park blend together, offering people a chance to go on a horse carriage ride in leisure, walk through the park and transverse over all this traffic without getting hit, and as we've been doing today, ride along the bridle path and get some invigorating horseback riding and recreation. This will bring us to our ending point for the walk, where we get a little view from the hillside of the bridle path we just explored, and that little rest stop giving us a taste of some of the other paths in Central Park. I hope you enjoyed this little taste of a lesser traveled path here in Central Park. But I want to thank you all so much for joining us and for attending these weekly walks. We really love doing them, and we're going to, of course, keep them going. We do have the Bethesda Terrace landscape next week with me, Ryan, and I'll be leading you around that area. And you probably heard or noticed, for those of us who have been regularly coming to the weekly walks, we changed up the registration process. So now if you sign up for a weekly walk, it'll be a continuous series where you'll get emails each week. So if you haven't already signed up and getting those continuous emails, sign up for the next one, and you won't have to continuously sign up. So your weekly walks will be coming every week in an email. And then we do have other walks that you can access that are pre-recorded and on our YouTube channel. So if you go to the Central Park Conservancy YouTube channel, you can access all the other weekly walks that we've put out and recorded, like this one, which will be uploaded either later today or tomorrow. We do have plenty of other different types of walks and virtual programs that you can come to. We do have one today at 3 p.m. It's part of our Behind the Park series. And the Behind the Park series takes a look at different teams within the Conservancy and different types of work we do. Today, we're going to be focusing on rustic architecture. So if you like rustic architecture, today at 3 p.m., Behind the Park series will be talking with people in our rustic team and how they create some of this beautiful craftsmanship and architecture throughout the park. We also have a tree walk tomorrow on Thursday at 3 p.m., as well as the weekly walks, which continue every Wednesday at 12:30. But no matter how you want to explore the park, we want to thank you for joining us and encourage you to keep doing so through different things like the My Central Park hashtag or any of our other virtual programs, self-guided tours, or offerings. But I'm going to leave this chat open for a little bit longer in case anybody has any last-minute questions or anything like that. But thank you so much again for joining us. We'll hope to see you next week at 12:30. And from all of us here at the Central Park Conservancy, stay safe and be well.